For years, the internet has been haunted by the same kind of story. It never starts loudly. It begins as a whisper, a comment buried deep under a video, a post that vanishes after a few hours, a screenshot that someone swears they saw before it disappeared. According to these whispers, there are photos, not ordinary photos, forbidden ones, images that were never meant to be seen, never meant to survive, and never meant to resurface. And the name tied to those whispers keeps coming back: Meghan Markle. The claim is always framed the same way. They were erased, they were locked, they were scrubbed from archives. It's a story designed to be impossible to verify and impossible to disprove, and that's exactly why it spreads. Because when someone tells you evidence existed but was destroyed, they don't need to show you anything. The absence becomes the proof. This is where the story truly begins, not with a royal wedding, not with a prince, but with the psychology of rumor itself. In the digital age, some of the most powerful stories aren't built on documents or court records. They're built on the idea that documents once existed and were taken away. The human brain fills in the rest. And when the subject is someone as polarizing as Meghan Markle, the imagination does the heavy lifting. The whispers claim the photos were connected to powerful people. That's always the next step. Power makes the rumor feel plausible. Power explains why things would be hidden. Power gives the story a villain without requiring evidence. But here's the detail most people skip over. Real evidence doesn't behave this way. When genuine photos exist, especially controversial ones, they don't float around as someone once saw them. They surface with metadata, with dates, with original sources, with credit lines, with photographers, with agencies. They leave a trail. Rumors don't. Rumors thrive in fog. They thrive in phrases like, according to sources, reportedly, people say, and it was locked away. And the more serious the implication, the more important it is to slow down and ask a simple question. Who actually published it? Not who reposted it, not who described it, who verified it. That question alone is enough to collapse most internet myths. And yet, these stories keep returning. Why? Because Meghan Markle sits at the perfect intersection of fame, controversy, and silence. She is known for protecting her image. She is known for choosing when to speak and when not to. And silence, especially when misunderstood, acts like gasoline on speculation. When a public figure doesn't respond, people don't assume restraint, they assume strategy or fear or guilt, even when none of those things are proven. That's how a rumor gains emotional weight without factual weight. And then the story evolves. People begin tying the whispers to real, documented scandals, not because there's proof of connection, but because proximity creates suspicion. The Epstein case, for example, was real, horrific, documented. So attaching unrelated names to its shadow feels believable to an audience already primed to distrust institutions. This is where things become dangerous, not just for celebrities, but for the public. Because once the brain associates a name with a scandal, the distinction between documented involvement and online speculation starts to blur. Repetition replaces verification. The story becomes familiar, and familiarity feels like truth. At this stage, the narrative usually adds insiders, someone who worked in those circles, someone who saw things, someone who heard things. These voices are almost never on record. They don't provide documents. They provide atmosphere. And atmosphere is powerful. It allows the audience to imagine rooms they've never been in, private planes, exclusive parties, elite gatherings. It builds a cinematic world where everything feels secretive and connected. But here's the truth that gets lost in that atmosphere. Elite social spaces exist. Networking exists. Wealthy people share environments. None of that is evidence of wrongdoing. Yet once the rumor engine starts, context disappears. A photo at an event becomes a symbol. A membership becomes a conspiracy. A social connection becomes a secret alliance. And suddenly, the story isn't about facts anymore. It's about narrative hunger. People don't just want to know what happened. They want the feeling that they've uncovered something hidden, something forbidden, something they didn't want you to know. That feeling is addictive. And it's why these stories don't fade even when no evidence ever materializes. This isn't unique to Meghan Markle. It happens to politicians, actors, royals, tech leaders, anyone whose rise feels fast, curated, or protected. The more polished the public image, the more aggressively people hunt for a shadow version. And once the idea of a hidden past enters the conversation, everything gets reinterpreted. Old travel photos become suspicious, social events become connections, silence becomes confirmation. But none of that is proof. It's projection. And the most unsettling part is this. Once a rumor reaches this stage, even debunking it doesn't kill it, because the rumor isn't surviving on truth. It's surviving on structure. That structure, the missing photos, the erased files, the locked archives, is the hook. And until people learn how that structure works, the story will keep resurrecting itself. Which brings us to the next layer, because once a rumor survives long enough, it stops being about the person at the center. It becomes about the system that allows rumors like this to feel real in the first place. Every viral scandal that lacks proof follows the same blueprint. Once you recognize it, you start seeing it everywhere. Step 1 is suggestion without evidence. This exists. These photos were real. They were seen. Step 2 is denial of access. You can't find them anymore. They were locked. They were scrubbed. Step 3 is authority borrowing. Names of real criminals, real scandals, real court cases, loosely attached to unrelated people. Step 4 is moral framing. If this is true, everything changes. If this came out, it would rewrite history. Notice something important. At no point does the story require confirmation. It only requires belief. And belief spreads faster than evidence because belief doesn't slow down to ask questions. The reason these narratives stick to Meghan Markle in particular is because her public story already contains elements people distrust. A rapid rise, a dramatic transformation, a departure from tradition, a controlled image, a complicated relationship with the media. Those ingredients make her the perfect canvas for projection. So when someone says, "There's more you don't know," the audience is already receptive. Add the idea of powerful institutions, palaces, media, corporations, and suddenly the absence of proof becomes logical instead of suspicious. Of course it's hidden, people think. Look who we're dealing with. That's how misinformation protects itself. But let's talk about something rarely discussed: how false evidence is created. Today, it takes minutes to miscaption an image, seconds to remove metadata. AI can generate convincing fake photos. Old photos of unrelated people can be reintroduced with new names. Once that image circulates long enough, it becomes something people remember seeing, and memory is unreliable. People swear they saw things that never existed. That's not stupidity, that's human cognition. And when platforms remove false content, as they should, rumor accounts reframe removal as censorship. They're hiding it. They don't want you to see. The deletion becomes the myth. Now combine that with silence from the subject. Public figures are often advised not to respond to baseless rumors because responding amplifies them. But online audiences interpret silence emotionally, not strategically. They assume guilt or fear or calculation. In reality, silence usually means this isn't worth legitimizing. But once the rumor reaches a certain size, silence stops being neutral. And this is where the story becomes bigger than Meghan Markle, because the same process has been used against countless public figures, especially women. Their social lives are scrutinized, their friendships reinterpreted, their pasts rewritten to fit a darker narrative than reality ever supported. And the internet rewards it, because outrage gets clicks, suspicion gets views, mystery gets retention. So what happens next? More files will be claimed, more photos will be rumored, more insiders will speak anonymously. Not because new evidence exists, but because the format works. And unless viewers learn to ask the right questions, these stories will continue to mutate and attach themselves to anyone who rises too fast or speaks too carefully. The most uncomfortable truth is this: the past doesn't need to be buried for people to believe it was. All it needs is a good story. And once that story cracks the surface, it doesn't break in silence.